Picard Season 3 only had one moment that felt like proper Star Trek, and it's thanks to Jonathan Frakes. Despite the overwhelming nostalgia and reunion-heavy thrills of Star Trek, Picard Season 3, longtime fans of the franchise were left wanting something deeper, a return to the core ideals of Star Trek. And while much of the season leaned heavily into action, vengeance plots, and dramatic twists, there was one singular moment that felt like true Star Trek, and it came courtesy of none other than Jonathan Frakes, stepping behind the camera once again and reminding everyone what the franchise is really about. That moment happens in Episode 4, No-Win Scenario, an hour that on its face is about survival. The Titan is trapped inside a gravity well, its systems failing, and hope is dwindling. But rather than devolve into technobabble or brute force solutions, the episode takes a bold pause. Instead of rushing toward explosions or betrayal reveals, the show focuses on introspection, philosophy, and legacy. And at the center of that stillness is a scene that quietly redefines the season. The conversation between Captain Riker and Admiral Picard over a meal in the ship's observation lounge. Here, for the first time in Picard's third season, we get a scene that could have come straight out of The Next Generation, not because of Easter eggs or nostalgia, but because it embodies what Star Trek always stood for. Two seasoned officers confronting not an alien enemy, but themselves. Riker confesses his fear of death, his crisis of belief in the afterlife after losing his son. Picard opens up about the realization of his own legacy, now complicated by the sudden appearance of a son he never knew. It's quiet, vulnerable, and deeply human. This is Star Trek, and Jonathan Frakes, both in front of the camera as Riker and behind it as director, is the reason it works. Frakes understands that the best Trek isn't about ships or weapons or even space battles. It's about people. It's about what the stars teach us about ourselves. And he uses his directorial skill to create space for that truth to breathe. The camera lingers just long enough on each character's face. The dialogue is unhurried, unafraid to let silence speak louder than exposition. There are no cutaways to the bridge, no artificial stakes shoved in. Just two men, decades into their journeys, trying to make sense of their pain. This scene, and indeed the whole episode, recalls classics like TNG's The Measure of a Man or DS9's Duet, where the drama doesn't come from space anomalies but from emotional honesty. In a season that was otherwise turbocharged with callbacks, changeling plots, and galaxy-ending stakes, this small, reflective moment hits harder than any twist. Because it reminds us what Star Trek can be when it dares to slow down and look inward. Jonathan Frakes' direction also elevates the subplot involving Jack Crusher, Picard's son, as he bonds with Seven of Nine and grapples with his place aboard a Starfleet ship. The scenes with Jack in this episode don't exist to set up future action, but to explore identity, another hallmark of classic Trek. Jack's outsider status, his resistance to Starfleet's culture, and his burgeoning respect for it all play into the broader themes of found family and personal growth. Once again, it's Frakes who brings warmth and maturity to these character beats. More than just capturing nostalgia, Frakes channels the soul of Star Trek. He doesn't just play Riker as a confident former first officer. He directs with the sensitivity of someone who knows that Star Trek is as much about moral courage as it is about photon torpedoes. Under his watch, No-Win Scenario becomes a meditation on aging, grief, and the fear of being forgotten, issues that mirror real-life struggles, giving the show relevance far beyond its fan service. The irony is that the rest of Picard Season 3 often falls into the same traps as many modern sci-fi shows. There's a tendency towards spectacle over subtlety, a reliance on legacy characters being shoehorned into high-stakes situations without room to explore what they've learned or how they've changed. Villains are more cartoonish than complex. The pacing races from one crisis to another. There's little time to breathe. But in No-Win Scenario, Jonathan Frakes gives us that breath. He reminds us that the greatest challenges aren't always outside the ship, they're inside us. And he shows that, even after all these years, Star Trek can still ask the big questions. This was the one true moment of Picard Season 3 that felt like proper Star Trek, not